Valley to Peak Nutrition Podcast. This week is a short and quick episode that we did for a group that we work with out of Australia who trains mountaineers called Summit Strength. There are really two questions that came in for the week that we were working on their folks with. One of them around supplements, one of them around how to manage your nutrition when you're traveling, particularly whenever you need to. There's something you're working towards, there's a goal in mind, etc. Now, on one hand, with the travel nutrition tips, there were several that we talked about in there, but I know those are always a challenge to keep in mind. So, in the show notes, you're going to see a guide that we created and built, a link to that so you can download that for free. Just have them in front of you, whether you literally print those out and take them with you on a trip, or you just want to read them over because you absorb the information better that way. I wanted to give you something that you could have versus just me rambling off a bunch of things on an episode. The second is this particular topic as it pertains to a supplement. And the supplement that they ask about is one that's not really brought up much. In fact, I don't know that I've ever had someone bring it up, but knowing that there's probably not that many people trying to pursue taking this, I wanted to take the topic a little broader and take it to supplements in general. And most importantly, give you some tools to know how to look at supplements and determine whether or not what's being suggested about them from either someone, a relative, a person online, or the packaged product itself, whether or not what is in it is actually in it, whether or not the claims about it are actually true. You hear so many people say this study or that study said that that supplement does X, Y, and Z. And most of us don't really know if that's true, how studies work, when is a study actually valid, when is it not. And so, again, I hope it just gives you a couple tools in your arsenal that you can use to make your own decisions on. So, couple topics, quick episode. Hopefully it helps though, and hope you enjoy it. And like I said, if you have additional ones, you can always follow up and send us those when you get a chance. Here's the first one. It says, I regularly drive 10 plus hours to go and see my children. But on these days, my nutrition is terrible, and I really feel the effects of that. Do you have any recommendations to help with this? So this is a great question because I think that regardless of whether or not it's, this scenario where you're going to see your kids, we all as a whole tend to lead busier lives than our parents did, certainly busier than whenever I was a kid, which means that we're on the go more, which means that we are inevitably having to eat on the go more. And so being able to develop a decent plan for these types of situations, again, whether it's a planned road trip or just a part of your common life, I think is good and is helpful for staying on top of your nutrition. One thing I think that's important to bring up even under this topic is this. You getting the benefits, we getting the benefits. If we want the benefits of something with nutrition and staying on top of it, and this is true of your training too, there has to be enough that in order for us to stay on top of our nutrition, it's not a single decision. It's not even a series of decisions in a week. It's a series of decisions over many, many months to the point that where those decisions add up to the cumulative effect that you feel. So if we set a goal in place, if we set a plan in place, and we only do that sometimes, we may not see the benefit from that plan in its entirety, not because we didn't do the plan itself right. There just wasn't enough of a series of those events strung together to where we could actually see the benefited outcome. So everything that operates in the world of nutrition and fitness is a series of things done over and over again to the point of where cumulatively it adds up. No single decision is going to make you, no bad decision is going to break you, and even no single week is going to make you, and no single bad week is going to break you. It's really a series of decisions over time that adds up. And that's where this question really comes into play too, is if you're genuinely making these trips this often, if your life is so busy that this is happening enough, doing it one time or every now and then is probably still not going to fix the core issue that you're experiencing. You need to do it often enough to feel the effects of that. That means more times than not. And so here's a game plan, because that was the heart of the question, right? As you said, look, I regularly drive a lot. My nutrition's really bad. I feel the impacts of that. What are the recommendations? So probably the most obvious one, and you may have thought of this, is you need a plan. What I have found is that most people have no plan. They get in the car with nothing and hope. I don't know what they hope. They hope that they don't get hungry. They hope they make it there before they get hungry, but they have no real plan. So I think that the most obvious thing is that you've got to go into these trips with a plan. Now, let me say this. If you're making these trips all the time, that can sound daunting, but there's no reason that once you develop a plan, it can't be repeated on every trip. And honestly, we take a lot of these trips into the mountains in the summer and into the fall, and we package our food this way. And it's become so easy because every time we go, we just repeat the exact same grocery list. So it's like on repeat, we just print that list or we order it or whatever. And it's the exact same thing every single time. You just throw it in a cooler and you go. There's no obsessing about creating a menu. There's no obsessing about what you're going to order and how you're going to package it and what needs to be cool, what needs to be dry, what's going to be this on Monday, what about Tuesday. You just put it in and you go. So I think that that's rule number one, is every time I go and do something or go on a road trip, I'm not recreating or reinventing the wheel. I'm duplicating it. I make one wheel and put it on all four sides of the car and go. So I think that's rule number one. Number one, you need to have a plan. And that plan needs to consist of several important things. Number one, you need to consider the time, because if the time is long, you said 10 hours, there's probably going to be a couple of times within that 10-hour window you're going to want to eat. If we're talking about an hour, that's less of a deal. If you're a person who leads a busy life and you know that you're leaving the house in the morning at 8 a.m., you're not coming home until 5, even though you're not going to be like in some rural areas, you know you're going to want to eat in there. Think about what it is that you like to eat. How many times do you eat a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner? You're going to need 3 things. Do you normally snack 3 times a day? You're going to need 3 potential options of eating. So you need to strategize this plan around how many times you think you'd like to eat in the given time period that you know you're going to be away from what you normally have available to you to eat. That's number one. Number two, you need to think about what it is that you're going to eat, because that's going to set up number three. Now, when you think about what it is that you're going to eat, you're going to think about a couple of things. Number one, the nutrition. Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. We have talked over and over again about how each of those have their own respective responsibility in human nutrition. For us to feel full, for us to not get hungry, for us to have energy, for us to recover or get ready to go train, the percentages, the constituent ingredients, the makeup of that meal needs to be dependent on how much of each of those categories we're getting. So you need to think about what it is that you're actually going to eat. The second part of that is you need to think about how it's going to travel. Are you going to need to refrigerate any of this? Well, then you're going to need a cooler. Do you plan to not refrigerate any of it? Well, then you might not need a cooler. But as a third part of that is you need to think about the access. If you're 10 hours on the road, are you the type of traveler who just likes, going, stopping and getting gas, and that's it, right? There is no deviation from the plan whatsoever. Or are you one who, like, you don't mind pulling over and eating for 20 minutes under a shade tree at a gas station? All right, so you got to think about that. If you're the person who likes to just put gas in the car and go, you're going to need to have something that's accessible to you in the front seat and that you can eat, munch, or nibble on while you are driving. Although I would strongly advise you, per the public air of this podcast or this video, you should pull over and eat. All right, there's my public service announcement. But you need to think about whether or not you're going to need refrigeration, and you need to think about how you're going to eat it. Don't plan on packing something that's going to require utensils if you have no plan to pull over. You need to think about, being able to find stuff that it is that you're going to actually be able to eat while you continue to move. The fourth thing that I would say is this. This is more of a what not to do. Just don't make the silly mistakes along the way that are going to put you in a position where you don't feel good. Right? I mean, convenience stores and gas stations are ripe with pickings that are just going to be high sugar, low energy, no protein, none of those things. So find things in those spots that are going to keep you pretty energized. I started to think about, okay, well, maybe I can just rattle off ideas of what types of foods to take in this, but honestly, that would be boring and very long and have you fervently writing them down. So I just created a list or guide that you can print and look through and potentially take with you. Now, this list and this guide is not exhaustive. There are certainly options that extend beyond what's written in here, but I do think that these are kind of a good starting point for you to build your own little menu based on where it is that you're going and what options you've got for food. But I will tell you this, as someone who does travel quite a bit, and who spends quite a bit of time away from home in the fall, summer, spring, really, it is very, 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 very possible, and it is worth it if you want to feel good. All right, the second question: what is your opinion of rhodiola rosea as a supplement? I heard that it can be good for both fatigue and useful at altitude. Is there any real truth to any of those things? First and foremost, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to give you my opinion because my opinion really doesn't matter at all. I'm going to give you what I know about it from what we see in bigger studies and groups of people, and then let you make your own decisions based off of that. Now, before you go into whether or not it's effective, I think like that's probably one that most people aren't familiar with. And so if that's you, you're like, well, what in the world is that? It's basically a root that is found in other countries. And the theory behind it is that you can take the root, you can consume it, whether it's in like a, whatever format it is that you decide to consume it in. And it's supposed to be a reliever of stress, predominantly a variety of different stresses, really, from physical to mental to emotional to environmental. And that's where some reports have come up, even about like altitude. Now, is it effective? Does it work? So I'll say this. There is research from randomized controlled trials. That's a very important part because that is like the upper echelon of studies. And that is where we give people whatever it is that we want to study, a, a sample of that ingredient. They don't know necessarily that they're even getting it. And then they're documenting how they feel on it. What are they reporting? Do they notice any difference from what it is that they've taken, or did they get the placebo? Right. And so you're getting, to the best of our known ability to surprise people, you're getting the real, raw, candid truth as to whether or not people are feeling any kind of a difference. So there is some randomized controlled trials where people will say they'll feel relief from a variety of different things. Those things range from stress and burnout to depression to mental fatigue to physical performance and endurance. Now, that sounds great. And if you heard those things, you're probably wondering, well, how is this stuff even on the shelf if it does all of those things? And this is where studies can get tricky because even when you look at those and you look at the number of study participants, you see that it's very low, right? Ranging anywhere from as little as 18 people to like the highest number being 60. Now, to give you an idea of what that means, it really doesn't mean much. Some studies like this have hundreds of thousands of people followed over many, many years, and they start to see, okay, hundreds of thousands of people over many, many years have continued to report this about this particular substance, not the one we're talking about now, but let's just say that any random one that has proven its efficacy. Let's say whey protein, because whey protein is protein, so it works. Then we'll start to say, okay, there's not a chance here that hundreds of thousands of people over long periods of time experience the exact same thing, and there's not something to this. So when you see a research study of 18 to 60 to even 100 people reporting certain things, it's not that convincing, right? And so I would say that you treat it like this, right? It's interesting. You could take it and you could see if you personally know any benefit, because that's the other thing when you have such a small group or a small sample of people. And it's kind of like, as long as the thing being studied, the supplement being studied is not going to cause a person any harm, just try it, because you may, number one, nutrition is so individual. You can have people who are responders and people who aren't. Even creatine, there's a large percentage of people that we know are non-responders. Now, there is something to the placebo effect. If those same non-responders take that and feel like they feel something, they are more likely to train harder and, be more optimistic about their outcomes. Like, I'm not even saying the placebo effect is strong, and if it gives you a placebo effect and that gives you confidence in the mountains, then and there's no harm, then sure, knock yourself out. But I think that you would have to try it yourself to see, right? It's harmless for the most part. We don't really see any big side effects from it as long as you're taking recommended doses. And I think you would have to try it to find out. Now, what I would say is this: because there's really such little evidence that exists, it is not something I would put all my stakes in. I would not say, I'm not going to worry about getting there early to acclimate. I'm not going to expect any sort of side effect from being at higher altitudes. I'm not going to work on anything that decompresses my stress. I'm just going to trust in this supplement to do all of those things. That's probably unwise. I don't think I would do that. So you can try it. You can see if you notice any effects or not, and then you can certainly go from there. So, a couple of good questions. Hopefully, it gives you some guidance wherever you're at in your journey as well. Like I said earlier, I will post that I guess we'll call it a guide or examples or ideas of things that you can take on a road trip. They certainly aren't, it certainly isn't all of them, but it'll at least give you a head start. I will say this about that now that I'm thinking of it. You're not going to find a bunch of protein bars and energy bars and all of that. If you've listened to this at all from us at all, I am not a fan of those packaged bars, largely because companies portray that they give you energy, but they are mostly giving you lots of fat, lots of carbohydrate, and fast energy that does not stick with you. It's a lot of calories in a small package that generally do not hold people over until their next meal. They don't provide satiety. So I'm not a fan. Now, if you throw a ton of those in and you say, oh, it's not me, they're great, I love them. Okay, well then knock yourself out again. But you're not going to find a lot of those. Instead, you're going to find pretty nutrient dense, single ingredient foods that are really going to provide you good satiety, contribute towards your training, contribute towards your recovery, and put you in the best position possible to make the most of the work that you're doing. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us, and I would be glad to help as well. If we don't hear from you, we'll talk to you again. Like I mentioned in the earlier parts of the episode, there is a guide attached with, the link is attached for you to go download the guide if you're interested on some of those tips that we talked about in there with traveling and nutrition and trying to stay aware and on top of things. And like we talked about a couple of times in the episode too, if you ever have any questions, we love covering those. So you can send those over to us at info@v2pnutrition.com, and we would be sure that we'll cover them. We'll be back again in another couple of weeks with more episodes. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great week.